All rise for the Honorable Chief Justice Eden Blakewell.
Didn't know this was a fashion show, James. You trying to set the bar, or are you just hoping the judge notices your good side?
You may bring in the jury now.
You may be seated.
Folks, it's time. Please follow me.
Please remember that your role is to remain impartial. Focus on the evidence and make a fair judgment based solely on the facts presented in this courtroom. Daiichi, what is the case number?
Your Honor, the case files are 20,250,306-01 and 2025030602.
Thank you. Daiichi, the case numbers are noted. 2025030601 and 2025030602. We are now ready to proceed with the opening statements. Prosecution, you may begin with your opening statement.
There is also this case file 2025022402.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I want to thank you for taking the time from your daily lives in order to attend this trial, to evaluate and in the end, deliver the justice the defendant, Mr. Dallas Carter, most assuredly deserves. Over the next few hours, you will be presented with evidence that this man before you is absolutely guilty of every charge he has levied against him. I implore you to be impartial, to weight the evidence and make the decision that is just and right, not only for all of those in this community but for the family of the fallen officer and those whom she served with. Thank you.
Defense, you may present your opening statement.
Your Honor, members of the jury, first and foremost, I want to acknowledge that we are here because of a tragedy. Detective Taylor Jones's death is not something anyone should take lightly. A life was lost, and that is a loss to everyone. But I am here today to make one thing clear. I did not kill Detective Jones, and I did not kidnap her. What you will hear today will show that the evidence against me is not as concrete as the prosecution claims. Now, I'm not going to pretend I'm someone I'm not. I've made mistakes in my life, I've been involved in things I regret, and I've paid the price for it. But that doesn't mean I am guilty of what they're accusing me of now. My past does not define this case. What I'm asking from you is to look at the facts, not who I am or where I've come from. The prosecution will present evidence, DNA, fingerprints, witness testimony. But I want you to listen carefully. Evidence can be manipulated. It can be misinterpreted. It can even be planted. You'll hear about DNA under Detective Jones's nails, but what they won't tell you is that the investigation was rushed. There are holes in the chain of custody, inconsistencies in the evidence, and they haven't explained those to you. They'll point to a fingerprint on her neck, claiming it links me to her death. But ask yourselves, how do we know that fingerprint wasn't planted? How do we know it was left at the time of the murder? These are important questions. You'll hear testimony from witnesses who claim to have seen me dumping a body. But did they see everything? Their stories are incomplete, and their memories aren't perfect. They didn't see all the details, and I'm not here to deny things happened that night. But I am here to show you that I wasn't the one who killed Detective Jones. Yes, I have a history with the police, but that doesn't make me a murderer. Detective Jones's death was tragic, but there are things you're not being told. Consider the fingerprint found on her neck. This is one of the key pieces of evidence they're going to highlight. But I want you to consider this. Forensic experts acknowledge that recovering fingerprints from the neck area is difficult. The skin is elastic, the oils, the moisture, and the sweat make it tough to get a clear print. And even if they did manage to get a print, how can we be sure it's from the moment of the murder? There are too many variables here for the print to be a reliable link to me. Now, let's talk about the investigation. The police were focused solely on me. They didn't consider other suspects, and that's a big problem. They were so determined to pin this on me that they overlooked key aspects of the investigation. There was no trace of Detective Jones's DNA at my house. No trace in my truck. If I had been involved, why wouldn't there be anything connecting me to her? Yet there's nothing. Then there's the witness, Opalyn, who claims to have seen someone dumping a body by the pier. Deputy Chief McDonnell spoke with her, but I want you to think about this. A body isn't just a package, as she described in the 911 call. It's a human life. If she was so focused on seeing a person dump a body, how can we trust that she saw everything clearly? How reliable is her memory? How stressed was she in that moment? Now, let's talk about the DNA under Detective Jones's fingernails. The prosecution wants you to believe that this shows I fought with her. But if that were true, why isn't there any physical evidence of a struggle on my body? No scratches, no bruises, no marks that would show that I fought with her. If she was fighting for her life, as they claim, shouldn't there be some sign that she scratched or hurt me in the process? There's nothing. This is a huge inconsistency in their case. And remember, this isn't the first time Detective Jones had been in my home. Just days before her death, she came into my house and took evidence without a search warrant. She could have easily gotten my DNA during that time, and I'm not the only one who could have left evidence under her nails. Lastly, let's discuss the gray truck mentioned by the witness. My truck isn't gray. It's got some gray in it, sure, but it's a mix of colors, black, blue, and more. How many other tall men in Portofino have tattoos and drive a truck that looks like mine? This isn't the smoking gun they're trying to make it out to be. DNA is easily transferred through non-intimate contact, just from touching objects, surfaces, even people. So I ask you, is it really so clear that I'm guilty based on this? When you step back and look at everything, there's so much doubt here. The investigation was rushed, the evidence is inconsistent, and the police focused on me without truly considering all the facts. So I ask you, the jury, to look at everything carefully. Don't let past assumptions cloud your judgment. The truth matters, and I trust that when you weigh all the evidence, you'll see I'm not guilty of what I've been accused of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for your statement. Now that both parties have presented their opening statements, we will proceed with the presentation of evidence. Remember, it is your duty to evaluate the evidence impartially, and only that which is presented in this courtroom should guide your decision-making. Prosecution, you may begin your presentation of evidence.
This did I ask the man in the suit, ladies and gentlemen. A man who has spent far too much time breaking laws, bending rules, disregarding human lives and the community he is in, takes a moment to look at each juror. Then turns to point to the DNA results. This did I ask the DNA test of the skin found under the defective's nails. Now 30 years ago, Mr. Carter may have had a good argument. DNA testing was in its infancy and well, it just couldn't be used as strong evidence. But that it can now. This is undeniable, incounterable proof. Mr. Carter did kidnap the detective. As evidence she fought, she struggled and therefore was able to obtain his DNA under her nails. Pauses with a serious look on her face. There is no refuting this DNA result. There is not a question that his man points to Dallas Carter is responsible for the kidnapping and murder of the detective. The events, each charge that is levied against Mr. Carter, is solid. Mr. Carter shot and wounded 2 officers in the line of duty. He attempted to abduct an innocent bystander while attempting to get away from police while shooting at them, subsequently resulting in their injuries. This is not made up, this is not conjecture, but this is his fact, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Carter has stated it could have been anyone else. Could be you. Heck, could be me. Mr. Carter is doing what he has done his entire criminal career. He did IS manipulating, he did IS twisting and deflecting, hoping you are not aware and wise enough to know the difference. There is no one else, because all the facts, all the evidence points clearing to him. I should thank Mr. Carter honestly. This is not a hard case to prove because he has made it easy with leaving behind evidence that points to him and test results. He has given us evidence as well, both left behind and that by physically exhibiting his nature in the shootout that injured 2 officers and nearly a citizen who was just trying to get to her house door after arriving home from work. Ladies and gentlemen, Dallas Carter is guilty. There is the proof and that of the officers who have first-hand dealt with him on these events. That's all for now, Your Honor, though prosecution reserves the right to speak rebuttal, sir.
Object and double jeopardy. The arrest warrant mentioned in which 2 officers were shot was in the previous trial for a different situation entirely. It has nothing to